Revolutionary greetings, comrades. It's a red Sunday, the 13th of November, 2022. We are looking into the Zimbabwe elections, which are coming up in 2023. Zimbabwe is to hold a harmonized election. Harmonized election in that the local government, parliamentary and presidential will be done in one day. Hence, we call it the harmonized elections. In the past, the elections have been dominated by the MDC and the ZANU-PF. MDC now going by the name Triple C. And we expected this to happen in the 2023 elections. Of interest, though, is that we have seen a change of faces at local government and the parliamentary level from both the ruling party, ZANU-PF, and the opposition, MDC, now Triple C. Those that won in 2000 in the opposition, under the opposition ticket, most of them are no longer there. New faces have emerged in the last 22 years. And we hope to see new candidates from the opposition ranks who were not there in 2000, who will be trying to also get into parliament. And some of them will indeed be elected into parliament. We are seeing also new leaders at a local and a parliamentary level from ZANU-PF, the ruling party, emerging. Most of them that were elected in 2000 are also no longer there or are now on the sidelines. We are beginning to see new faces emerging in the ranks of ZANU-PF benches in parliament. But the presidency has been elusive to the opposition. And the presidency only changed hands with the intervention of the military in 2017. Then Robert Mugabe was removed in 2017 and then passed on in 2019. And Mnangagwa is again the presidential candidate for ZANU-PF following its Congress. So what is the importance of this election in 2023? Or what is the focus? Because over the years, we've seen that parliamentary democrats in Zimbabwe, in the last 22 years, or in the last 42 years, even when ZAPU was well represented in parliament from 1980, parliamentary democracy has not changed or reformed the state. You have a powerful presidency in Zimbabwe. The president has executive powers, is not elected by parliament, meaning is not accountable to parliament, but is elected directly by the voters. He exercises executive powers. In 2008, ZANU-PF had fewer seats than the combined opposition votes. But because it had the presidency, it had to dictate the terms in terms of governance in Zimbabwe. The opposition, while it controls cities, Harare, Bulawayo, Gweru, Mtare, Victoria Falls, Gwanda, it is not, it is ceremonial. Yes, it has it controls politically in that it has the mayors, it has the majority of councillors in the cities. But because ZANU-PF controls the presidents, it then appoints provincial ministers. And the mayors then account also to the Minister of Local Government. So when you talk to opposition members who actually run or are said to be running these councils, they will tell you that they have no power because it is up to the minister to decide. Whatever they decide, it has to go through the Minister of Local Government. So in other words, you have ceremonial mayors. So you can contest a council seat in Zimbabwe, you win, but you are ceremonial. You contest a parliamentary seat and a win, but you are ceremonial. In the last, since 1987 or 88, when the presidents was introduced with the executive powers, executive presidents, ZANU-PF has used that key state apparatus to govern. It can allow its members at local government, at the parliamentary level, to lose elections, but it does not allow itself to lose the presidency. Or in other words, the deep state in Zimbabwe will not have a problem in who becomes a mayor of Harare, mayor of Mtaro, of Bulawayo, Chekutu. They have no problem. But they are very serious when it comes to who occupies the state house. So the opposition can win parliamentary seats, maybe 50% or even 51% of the parliamentary seat. But as long as it does not win the presidency, it remains powerless. So the question, therefore, that we are confronted with as we go to the 2023 harmonized elections is, what is our attitude as communists? Because we know that the elections in 2023 will not alter class relations. It's not a revolutionary process. It's a reformation agenda. An election is a reformist in character. It is not a revolutionary process. It's a reformist. But how do you reform the state if you are not in charge of the presidency? We need to draw lessons from Comrade Chavez, who won an election, and how they began to reform the state for the benefit of the working class and peasants. So having voices of communists in the parliament of Zimbabwe, a bourgeois parliament, by the way, it's important. It's important in that the parliament becomes a theater of struggle. You have a platform where you begin as communists, where we begin as communists, to articulate our views in a bourgeoisie parliament. This is why communists will not boycott an election, even though at this stage we are yet to take a decision on our contribution to the elections in 2023. But it's important to have communists in parliament to articulate its position. But more so, it is important for the communists to contest the presidency. Because the presidency must not be left to Chamisa and Mnangagwa for the two to contest. And then all of us then try to negotiate some accommodation in either in the Chamisa camp, that is Triple C, or in the Mnangagwa camp, that is ZANU-PF. Communists must contest the presidents. We must contest at local government level. We must have the voice of communists in council chambers, rural and urban. We must have the voice of communists in Parliament and in the Senate. And the communists must contest the presidency. Our comrades in the South African Communist Party do not contest on their own, though there's a discussion which is ongoing. But up to the last election in 2019, communists are deployed under the banner of the African National Congress in the South African Parliament, in various municipalities. They do not speak in those institutions as communists because they are not deployed by the party, the South African Communist Party. They are deployed by the African National Congress. It's also important to note that some members of the South African Communist Party, members of the Central Committee, were part of those that supported what the SACP characterized as the 1996 class project, GEAR, because they were in cabinet, not as communists, but as nationalist members of the African National Congress. We have many communists or members of the SACP in cabinet, South African cabinet today. Some are in parliament in various municipalities across the country. South Africa remains a capitalist society or runs a capitalist economy, which in the main is neoliberal. Now, if the Zimbabwe Communist Party finds accommodation, as some comrades will argue, say in CCC, it means that members of the Zimbabwe Communist Party, when they go into parliament, they will not be going there to articulate the views of the party, because it is not the party that will have sent them into parliament. They will have to go there and articulate the views of CCC. To an extent, that the communist agenda will not be heard in parliament. If you then begin to differ with the CCC in parliament, you'll simply be recalled. And there's nothing much that you can do, because it is CCC that will have sent you into parliament. So it's important that we must have this discussion as we go to 2023 elections. We know that the comrades argue. Some comrades argue to say, no, 2023, we need to remove ZANU-PF from power, so let us, all of us, rally behind CCC and remove ZANU-PF from power. Once we remove ZANU-PF from power, we can then deal with these other issues. The liberation movement, which Kwame Nkrumah expressed, said, seek ye political freedom first. Everything shall fall. It is Nkrumah again who then characterized post-independence in a number of African states as neo-colonial. Political freedom was granted, but economic freedom, years after liberation, is still elusive to all of us in Africa. Hence, our program says completing the liberation of Zimbabwe. Because we do not control our own economy. So comrades are arguing to say, no, let us capacitate all of us be under the yellow tent, triple C, and they remove ZANU-PF from power. Then we can begin to say, how do we construct or rebuild the economy going forward when Chamisa and triple C are in power? We must also draw lessons from MMMD in Zambia when it defeated UNIP in 1991. And we know that it reversed the gains of the working class and peasants when it was in power. This is why the people of Zambia have rejected MMD. So we must think as communists, how do we mobilize society? How do we mobilize the class that we represent? And they contest an election, 2023, contest the presidents, contest in parliament, contest in local government. And we have said, which the South African Communist Party provided a theoretical guide in 2019 at its special congress, that a communist party is an organ of the working class. It cannot contest elections on its own. So when we talk of communists contesting an election, is not to say a communist party must stand alone in an election. It must always be with the class that it represents. And this is how we should contest elections. Not on our own, as the Zimbabwe Communist Party. Neither can the South African Communist Party contest elections on its own. We must contest together with the class that we represent, as it is represented by the unions. As I conclude, our situation though in Zimbabwe is different, in that our economy is more informal than formal. Even in the formal economy, many workers remain unorganized. We have trade unions which are militant, which are in the public sector. Public sector unions are militant. This is why government is now countering the work of trade unions than coming up with these concepts. Economic empowerment, teachers for economic empowerment, which says teachers for ED, nurses for ED, pastors for ED, and so forth. It is a way to counter the militants of the trade unions in the public sector. Our industrial trade unions, farm trade unions are at this stage weak because of the decline in our economy. These are the questions that we must engage on. And also, as we discuss this question, We must also engage on what's the attitude of informal sector organizations, cross-border traders, residents associations, students, women organizations, youth. How does the party relate to those? Particularly in the context of contesting an election in 2023. Some comrades, as we continue to discuss this, no, Comrade Mabena, the party does not have resources. And there is no capitalist who will give a communist party resources. Something that we must clearly understand. In the next video, we must discuss this question of resources. And we must draw lessons from Ben Sanders in the United States. He might not be a communist, but it is important to draw lessons in terms of his own presidential campaign, which he has done twice in the United States also. So let's continue to engage on this question. That it is possible, very much possible, that the people of Zimbabwe might think that ZANU-PF and Triple C can dominate parliament. It is possible. But they have serious doubts about the ability of Emmerson Mnangagwa and Mnangagwa Chamisa as the presidents of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Please share your views. Let's continue with this discussion. Please circulate this video. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Otherwise, Amandla, comrades.